struggling with and trying to deal with over the past 3 years of being up at college. And it really I figured out that it really comes down to like just finding other people to share your faith with, whether it be just like a Christian small group that I mean, and they, for those of you who are out there that no, my school probably doesn't have that, or we're kind of everywhere. Like if it's one of those things like the whole seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open. If you look, we're here. Like I didn't think there was anybody really who practiced the faith up at Skidmore. And then I found this great Christian small group. We have discussions, we have Bible readings, and then we have discussions about them and how the teachings of Jesus apply to us in our modern time. And it's really great. And I also joined a choir while I was up there. I joined a church choir. It's not just a traditional church choir, which is vocals, but we have also we have piano, we have people who play the guitar, we have drums. It's like really, it's one of those just like really lively
So
places.
Mike, tell us about that mass where this group plays. What time is it? What church? And what who's playing? And give us a feeling for the whole thing that's going on up there.
So it's at St. Clement's up in Saratoga Springs. The mass, it begins at 5 o'clock, at 5 p.m. on 5 p.m. on Sundays, and it's just one of these things I look forward to at the end of my day, because I just love the fact that I can sing, because again I love singing, and being in a group with these very passionate followers of Jesus. And so we sing, some contemporary songs. Some contemporary church songs. We'll sing some of the classics, as I like to call them. I've just been being with them every Sunday has just been a great experience for my faith, because it just shows that there are people, that we're not alone, and it's the best feeling to feel like you're not alone, just trying to carry your cross through life. There's other people who are there to help you carry it with you. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's a beautiful thing. It also ties in with the coffee house. I'm just thinking of two things. I know we had a musician come to the coffee house, Ben Myers, who plays a guitar, and he also came on the radio. So it's a beautiful way of bringing people together through music, and makes you feel good because you're giving of yourself, but you're also, listening and receiving the beautiful blessings of music. And like you said, it's that there's small groups. It's it's quality over quantity, right? I guess that just came to mind. Would you agree about that?
Absolutely. It was some of the discussions we've had. If I don't know if any of them are on Long Island, but if any of my small group friends are listening, the discussions that we have. We get pretty deep into some of these things. It's really great discussion, and I never come away from that feeling like I missed something. I always feel like we talked about something like really great today, or like there was just some topic that someone was so passionate about, and we started talking about it. It was really good.
Just tell us about the small group. Is it really you guys take a piece of scripture and then talk about it, or is it more like your experiences, or is it a combination of both? How does that usually play out?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of both. So what we do is we'll read a scripture at the beginning of our session. Sometimes we'll read it together, sometimes we'll just read it to ourselves, and then we kind of see if there's a certain verse or if there's a certain line that kind of sticks out to us. We'll start talking about that, and that leads us on to certain topics. But it's really just like a organized discussion on what the scriptures is saying and how it speaks to us. And it's really, I feel like, a really productive thing for us. So.
Now, this group, is it an official part of the college? Can they advertise their existence on campus, or is it sort of a quasi-private group? Or tell me about that.
Well, I don't think it gets as much advertising as I would like, but
But they can put things on the bulletin board and that type of thing.
And we can encourage people to come in, just walk in if they would like to talk about Jesus. I'm all for it.
Is there an interfaith chapel on the campus, or do they?
Yes, I believe there is an interfaith chapel on campus that we use for some holy days. Yeah.
Certain things. Well, that's good. It's good to know that in a way that it's one of the approved groups anyway. That not that it wouldn't be good if it wasn't approved. Maybe it has to in some places. Maybe it has to be a little underground. You know what I mean? But it's but in this instance, I'm sure it's good that it is. You know what I mean? That you can advertise and be public about it. And so, Caterina, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask Michael if he's gone on any retreats or during the year with this small group at college, or any pilgrimages that really touched you, going along with these lines. We're also going to have my friend Dan from Stony Brook be calling in soon, and he's going to mention about some of his pilgrimage experiences. So just wanted to ask you if anyone really comes to mind that really struck you.
Yeah, so I haven't been on a pilgrimage with my small group before, and that's actually a good idea. I should actually organize one, which would be a really lovely concept.
Yeah, maybe, there's the spring semester. That might be enough time to kind of organize something.
But there was a small, like, little retreat, like a day retreat that I went on, that was for, I went to Chaminade High School, so they had a Chaminade High School alumni retreat. And I absolutely love the outreach that they do at Chaminade. They try to, like, reincorporate you into when you graduate, you never really leave the Chaminade family. It's one of those beautiful things. And one of my old religion teacher, brother Stephen, Stephen Balletta, yep. He
might be listening too.
Yeah,
hello.
Hopefully. And so he was helping run the retreat, and he was just a great influence to have. My friend Dennis Gannon, who's slowly beginning the process to enter the priesthood,
wow.
as well. So yeah, I was able to see him on the retreat. It was really good. It was a really good experience. I got to talk with a lot of my friends who I didn't really know how deep their faith was while I was at Chaminade, but now that I was able to talk to them and having discussions about the different aspects of our faith, it was really a rewarding experience. I came away with it just feeling this overall feeling of like, if there was any sort of heaviness in my chest, it was just kind of like lifted. So we had discussions about the importance of journaling, and why when we're in mass, like nowadays I have this small journal that I take with me to mass. I write down the readings for that day, and then I take notes on the homily. And I feel like when I do that in mass, I feel like I'm becoming a more active participant in the mass.
Well, you certainly are. Preparing your mass is a thing. Well, the priest has to do it because he's got to give the homily, but lay people would be very well advised, if they, as a part of their spirituality, to know the readings ahead of time. In fact, we do an email blast at St. Francis every Wednesday, where anybody who's signed up for it gets it, and it gives a little mini homily. It gives you the readings and then a commentary on them and a few prayers. So in other words, so you're into it, before you even get to church. You have between Wednesday and Sunday to prepare your mass, so to speak, as we could say. And the hook that I try to say, and you'll never hear a bad homily again. Why not? Because you wrote half of it. You had in your head what he should have said, or would have said, or could have said, and then as you begin to hear some of it, it's a whole different perspective on a homily. It's not hitting you cold turkey. You're receptive. There's things you're looking for, and you're ready to receive.
I like when you said, Father, one time on the show, you said, imagine how good the homilies will be if everybody's writing them down, if you're up on the altar and you see everybody with their book,
Well, there are some preachers who do that. I mean, there was a famous local Baptist preacher who insisted that the parishioners have notebooks, because he says, I've worked, and he preached for an hour. You know what I mean? He says, look, I prepared all week for this. This is the big thing I do all week. Now I want you to take notes.
Right.
So it's we wouldn't go that far with it and try to structure that.
Yeah.
But that's and then of course that's the whole service, or most of the service is the sermon. We've got a lot of other things we got to do with the mass and so forth there. But the idea of getting the small group discussion about scripture is fabulous.
I think there wouldn't be a lot of people sleeping or on their phone during Mass if they have to write, if the Baptist, just like the Baptist preacher said, I have to see you writing, and then nobody will be sleeping. But no, it's great because, you get to reflect a little bit on what you wrote during the week. Like, let's say on Sunday, a lot of times we forget, like, oh, what did Father say? And let's say it's a Tuesday, or, you know, it does help you to have those notes down, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. It was about, you know, forgiveness or peace, or Jesus said about the bread of life. You know, I'm the bread of life. And I think that's a major theme that's going on right now in the church, right, Father, with ordinary time, and how Jesus is reminding us of the importance of the Eucharist, and how he's our daily bread spiritually, and we have to go to him for strength.
The daily bread. That's the thing. So there's nothing plain and ordinary about the ordinary. If the Eucharistic bread is daily bread, well, then every day is an awesome day, isn't it? I mean, it's the ordinary time. Students are getting ready to go back to school. Okay, we've people are trying to sneak in their last weekend or their last day out east or upstate or whatever. You know, before Labor Day hits. Then it's the barbecue, and then it's back to
back to
business. It's back to business. It's back to business.
Yeah. No, it's ordinary but extraordinary, you know, and God is preparing us, you know, as we start the school year, as we start, you know, a new chapter in our life. That's great to keep that in mind.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Michael, keep telling us about that retreat experience. I know you said that for you it was, you felt a weight lifted off your shoulder. Was there any particular moment that you felt that, or just how was that retreat day structured so you felt that?
The way it was structured, it was, we had talks about journaling, and then we also had, so we first talked about journaling. It was more of an instructional thing, you know, how to journal, you know, so that way it's not just like a diary. It's more like a journal with the Lord in mind, like, say, so if something like bothered you that day, like, my brother took the last dry towel from the bathroom, that really annoyed me.
And didn't put a clean one back.
Yeah. So it's like, it's one of those things. So instead of just writing that in the journal, you would write, oh, my brother took out the last dry towel, so God give me the strength and the patience to be able to communicate these ideas of what I'm feeling to my brother, and so that way we can have a better relationship. And it's one of those, it's kind of like a dynamic conversation with God. It's like I like to think of it as like writing letters to God. That's the way I like to think of it.
That's a good way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. And so that was what we were instructed on in the first
trips, and I decided that I wanted to go on that one, and it was really a cool experience getting to see where St. Clare and St. Francis lived their lives and really started their ministry.
That's beautiful. And how many pilgrims were on the trip, and with
there were about 50 to 55 pilgrims altogether.
Wow. Did you meet new friends and new pilgrims? And
yep.
That's
good. Definitely got to meet some new people. The running joke was I came away from the trip with 45 to 50 new mothers and grandmothers.
That's great.
We can never have too many mothers and grandmothers, right?
That's right.
Oh, that's amazing.
So, what was the high point of your trip in Assisi? What touched you most, or what insight did you come away with that you really have to share first off?
The place, there are two places that really touched me the most. Up on Mount Sabasio, that's the big mountain looking up over Assisi. That's where both Clare founded the Poor Clares, and also where she went for her final days on this earth. And that was, like, of all the places that we went, that's the one that made me, like, tear up.
Is that San Damiano that you're referring to? San Damiano, is that the place?
I can't remember
Okay.
what it's called.
It's a mountain where St. Clare used to go often and pray right down.
Yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful.
Wow.
And
And the other
Mhm.
place that really touched me was where St. Francis got his stigmata. And it was a cool experience because that day we had mass in a smaller chapel, and then we were able to explore that church for the rest of the day, and then at 3 o'clock we joined in the Vespers procession from the main church at that place to the small church where Francis actually got his stigmata.
Was this outside of Assisi on another mountain or
Yeah.
on another place? Yes, yes.
Yeah, this was, I want to say, an hour and a half to 2 hour drive from Assisi.
How much time did you spend in Assisi on this
We
pilgrimage?
were there for 5.5 days.
All right. And probably you included sites in Rome too, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, we were in Rome for 4.5.
And Monsignor McNamara conducted the retreat himself, or did you have another
Yeah.
retreat master?
So when we were in Assisi, he was the one running the retreat. And then when we were in Rome, we had tour guides, and we went to all the different churches in Rome, and were able to see those.
Nice.
That's tremendous. Yes, it's good. You since you have to land in Rome, you might as well not bypass it and get and not see any of it. So it's a wonderful experience, that's for sure. And
And it was cool being in Assisi for as long as we did, because you got to really see the same people, the same town residents over and over again. Like, I used to see my friend with his VZ top beard and his little brown teacup poodle that he would walk
Aw. Every morning.
So by the end of the last day we were in Assisi, he's like, "Buongiorno."
You were learning some Italian
you made
already.
some new friends.
Nice.
Yes, you made some new friends.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely Assisi. You get that small town feel with it's a medium to large city, but it's beautiful with the stone buildings and the squares, and it's a little bit of a challenge going up and down some of the hills there. It could be a little steep, but there are
You need a little
flat
stamina.
areas.
You need a little
Yeah,
stamina.
you need
to
a little
walk.
stamina, but there's definitely
walking.
some flat areas, especially by the church.
Right.
The crypt level as well is pretty cool. Yeah, so tell us, Dan, about a little bit of Rome. I know you said you went to Rome.
Yeah.
What were
So,
some of the places?
one of the things, we had a lot of free time when we were in Rome, so a group of us went to the church
Sopra Minerva.
yeah, that's where the body of St. Catherine of Siena is. So that was cool. It's a really beautiful church, and it was cool because we completely by chance we stumbled upon a choir concert from this world famous choir conductor, and he was only in Rome for like a few days.
Oh,
That's so
nice.
awesome.
Yeah, Michael sings in the choir too, so he was just telling us about that. So that's amazing. Oh, so you got to hear some professional music that
Yeah.
I'm sure touched your soul. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights of the trip, that we just completely stumbled upon that.
As my sister says, is it odd or is it God?
I like that. I really like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then another cool thing in Rome, on one of our last days, we had mass at the North American college there, where Monsignor Jim teaches.
Mhm.
So we were able to see where he teaches, where all the seminarians are studying when they're in Rome.
Oh, nice. Good.
That's really great.
So did you get to meet some seminarians and talk with them, or?
Yeah, so the seminarians there were from all around the world.
Mhm.
And how about Pope Francis? Did you catch him also, or?
Yeah.
Oh, you went
So
to.
him,
Yeah.
that same, right after we finished mass at the college, we then went to see Pope Francis up in the St. Peter's Square. He was this little tiny dot all the way over in the window. But they did have big screens so that we could
Projector, you could see.
see him.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
At least once in my lifetime, I'd like to be able to see Pope Francis. I feel like that's a pretty.
I'm lucky I've seen him
Yeah.
3 times now.
Wow. That's
First
awesome.
time was in Central Park. Second time was back in 2016 for World Youth Day in Krakow.
Wow.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. Well, maybe Michael, after you graduate college, you could get to go to Rome. That would be a nice, pilgrimage experience. Have you ever been to Italy?
I've been to Italy maybe 2 times. I think the first time my family did a formal tour. It was like the Rome, Florence, Venice, that sort of
Okay,
deal.
the major cities.
Yeah,
Mhm,
and then the
mhm.
second time we explored more of the Amalfi Coast, so like Sorrento and
So
those
you saw
cities.
most of the highlights of Italy then. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. That's
the
great.
beautiful. Yeah, that's
But
great.
the beautiful thing is, of course, is you can come close to God anywhere.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A pilgrimage is great because you bring home images, you bring home thoughts and experiences, you bring home a new perspective. But the meat and potatoes are what you do every day, right in your own room or in your own residence or house or dorm.
Yeah.
That's really examining your conscience, doing the journal if you've chosen to do that, preparing your mass and all of these fantastic. But I'm concerned with Michael. I mean, what's the typical mindset about religion for, say, your peers in general at Skidmore? Are they, are they cool about it? Are they curious about it? Are they hostile toward it? I mean, you find all 3 of these things going. What's going on in the mind and hearts of kids today, about our Catholic and Christian faith?
Mhm.
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are some things that people can get behind. There are some things that are, some people have, there are people who are, there's a bunch of people who are just like, yeah, that's great that you have this, and I understand it's an important part of your life, but some people are just like, it's not for me. And then there are people who, they don't discourage it, but they'll look at, one particular aspect of it, and it's like, well, what does this really mean? And then I'll try to explain it to the best of my ability, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, okay, that's nice, or I'll sometimes get the, oh, okay, and then then the conversation ends at that. But it's interesting. I've slowly started to inadvertently kind of become this sort of advocate for the faith, and it's a responsibility that I take, and I'm happy with it. I'm comfortable with being that. But there have been some times where I was they were asking me these questions, and I didn't really know how to respond, so I did more research, and it was almost this sort of like trial by fire. It was like God was saying, like, okay, so all right, you say you have faith. Well, here we go. Here's your chance to prove that you have this faith. So when they come at you with all these questions, and what do you have? Do you have that structure, that foundation that's gonna keep you stable throughout the whole thing? And I feel like I feel like I came out of it pretty fine.
Wow, that's great. That's
So,
great. So that was an encouraging and empowering experience then.
Yeah.
Fantastic,
Yeah.
fantastic.
I actually wanted to ask Dan that question too. I know that he was part of the Stony Brook Newman Club while in undergrad, and tell us about your experience with your faith in college, Dan, and um, how you navigated the faith, and similar to what Michael said, sometimes not all of our peers are of the same faith, but how did you keep that up in college? Mm-hmm.
So for undergrad, I went to Molloy College, and they're a college that was founded and mostly still run by the Dominicans. So through that, I was able to get involved with the Dominican Sisters of Amityville, and really through getting involved with them, that really helped me keep the faith during college. And it's a very small college, so it's a small but strong faith community there. So I was able to meet some of the people with the same ideals and values. I used to do the music with some of the music kids that used to play for mass. And even when I went to Stony Brook for my master's, I was able to find a close-knit campus community, even if it is a public, non-Catholic college, which most people are surprised about, that a school like Stony Brook would have such a robust faith community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you think of it as a large science school and mathematics, and then you think, oh, wow, like they do have a Newman Club, and it is growing and helping the community. So it's a beautiful thing to see. And you said you played music. Tell us how did you sing? Did you play an instrument?
Yeah, I would sing.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
So we have two musicians in the house, and well, actually, I also play the piano, so that's beautiful. One day I have to play a little tune on the radio.
That's right, for our special hour, absolutely,
Yeah.
Caterina. We're missing out of all the people, all the places you should be playing. It's for us, right?
Yeah, I know. I have to keep practicing and get a little better. But definitely, Father, I will play a little song. But yeah, that's amazing. So the Dominican sisters, they're wonderful. Actually, Sister Joyce came on the show 2 times, and they have a beautiful herb garden and beautiful garden in Amityville. So yeah. So you maintain the faith in college by, like what Michael said, keeping a connection with friends and praying together. Mm-hmm.
And I still go very often to the mother house for the Dominicans in Amityville.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do when you go there? Do you pray with them?
Sometimes we'll go for Vespers, which is prayer of the hours, or we'll go for St. Dominic's feast day, or the day that it's founded, of the community was founded. So a few years ago we had a big celebration because as an order we celebrated 800 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
We were
Mm-hmm.
founded about the same time as the Franciscans, pretty much. Because one thing that I learned in Italy was that Francis and Dominic were contemporaries and were in Rome at the same time petitioning the founding of both of their orders. So they would often write to each other.
So are you a member of the Third Order of St. Dominic then?
I'm part of the Dominican Young Adults, which is not technically a third order.
It's not Third Order, it's another group, okay.
Yeah. It's part of the Dominican Youth Movement International, which is a group of laity that's both high school and college that are interested in learning more about the Dominican charism.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
That's a good thing, yes.
And actually later today, I'm going to a pool party with some of the sisters.
That's awesome.
There you go.
That's cool. Nice. Well, you're like we were mentioning, keeping the faith by having friends and going to these events and praying with one another, and the coffee house, like earlier we mentioned, praying at school, praying in your home, like you said, Father, journaling, praying in mass. These are all ways that are the meat and potatoes, like you said, of our faith. And I wanted to mention something that when I went to Medjugorje recently, about 2 weeks ago, our Blessed Mother kept asking us to pray for holiness in the families, pray for peace and holiness in the family, and also for the priests, for the priesthood. And that reminded me of what Dan said about third orders and young adult movement, and that priests and religious come from families, and how it's really important that each one of us remember families in our prayers, and vocations, and whether you're called to the married life or a religious life. I strongly encourage everyone to put that on our prayer list, because it is in deep need. And I know that Pope Francis right now is in Ireland, right, Father, at
That's
the
right.
World
At
the World Meeting
Congress of Families. That's
of
right,
Families,
yes.
yeah. And he's going to be speaking about the importance of family and what we could do to help with that. And I think it starts as an individual, us being role models and prayer warriors for one another. And then, if you're called to be in a family and married life, then bring those blessings to your children and to the world, and also, or a priest or a nun, you be able to give of yourself, and that comes with a strong family. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to pray.
Well, definitely Pope Francis can be counted on for sharing some insightful thoughts in accessible language. So we should be watching in the coming days for copies of the things that he said and done while he was in Ireland. And of course, it's a sad thing that this abuse controversy and rears its head every so often, and the church has to continue, of course, to deal with that. But we should not, hopefully, get distracted, from the beautiful event that the World Congress of Families will be, and also the special words that Pope Francis will have. The Holy Spirit will help the church solve this problem, but we need to have patience and prayer so that everyone does his part to work on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, tell us about, Dan, I know you said you went to Italy and Rome. Just going back to the pilgrimage experience, I also wanted to mention how when we go on pilgrimage, the blessings do continue, like Father said, when we go home and we try to incorporate prayers or the new things that we learned, the new friends in our prayers and in our hearts. Is there any prayers or anything that you want to continue as now you're back home and as you're continuing your life and your work here?
I like to, just like you said, keep praying for Pope Francis, for all the attentions, because one of the things that Pope Francis says very often is keep me in your prayers. And I often pray for guidance of both Pope Francis, of different intentions.
Mhm. Amazing. Yeah, that's definitely important. And yeah, we have to keep our priests and religious in prayer always. That's something I struggle with, but yeah, we have to remember all the time, because they need our help too. And
With church news, it's so easy to let the negative, drown out the positive.
right.
The Congress in Ireland is meant to be really to give a positive push toward the church in developing ways of being able to be supportive of families that are struggling to stay together, that so that they don't fragment. Of course, that means divorce or just people being isolated or non-communicative with each other or unforgiving, and find ways really to allow the Lord's grace to work not only in individuals but in families too, and that they can be so special. Yet, and on the other hand, the factors can be in families that inhibit some of the members from becoming who they are in the Lord. So we need something like this right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to turn it over to Michael again and tell us about another pilgrimage or retreat experience that really strikes you or really kind of goes along these lines. I know you mentioned you went with your family to Italy one time.
Right.
Is there anything that comes to mind for you?
I don't know what it was. It was just the city of Florence itself was just. When we went to Rome, like, don't get me wrong, Rome is a beautiful city. It's lovely. It has so many beautiful things to see, and I encourage anyone who has the opportunity to go there. But for me, I feel like Rome for me was one of these. It had like a sort of, I don't know, touristy kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, it's big and there's a lot going on. Yeah, it's big.
But still beautiful. Still a beautiful city. Going to the Vatican was amazing. We went on. Went into we went into the Church of Saint Peter and
then the Sistine Chapel through the museums. And
yeah,
all that,
we got to see the Sistine Chapel, and it was oh my God, it was so beautiful. It was just it was one of those things where I like. Where I just kind of like I actually kind of like got dizzy because I was like looking up at the ceiling for so long, and I was just kind of like just caught up in this like sort of awestruck like beauty, and it was like I didn't really have words to describe it at the time. It was just one of those things that was just it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have words to describe.
And then you liked Florence too.
Yeah, I liked Florence too. I love Florence because it was just one of those. I don't know. It just seemed like this city of culture and just this living, breathing Italian city that just has this sort of, I don't know, life to it.
Yeah. That's the Renaissance. That's the cradle of the Renaissance.
Yeah.
The masterpieces there are unique in all the world and so forth. But another beautiful part of Italy, the little hill towns, and not just Assisi, which is a shrine city, but the smaller places in Umbria and in Tuscany, and also to travel around in the fall or the spring of the year when it's not as hot during the day and so forth. You can appreciate all of that, and then to find little out of the way, off the path, beaten kind of places. All of the places have little special things that are not in the first rank of what you want to see or what everybody sees, but they can have special meaning, and if you can connect with them a little bit, that type of thing. I spent a month in Perugia, learning more Italian, and it was so I'll always feel close about that place. Some of the other little hill towns like Orvieto was a place we could visit. I was a student in Rome for 4 years. Orvieto was a place a little closer, and it's a medieval town built on a volcanic bluff, and in Rome itself there are so many of the smaller churches. One of my favorites is San Clemente because it has an ancient church down below, and it's not only the current church, but then down below is a spot where it looks like Christianity was competing almost as a storefront religion or a little, against a pagan religion called the Mithraic rites. They were all down there, on a little narrow street of ancient Rome, competing with each other. So, wow, those were probably rough days for St. Peter and shepherding the church, but beautiful days of breakthroughs for faith and in that environment. So if they did it then, we can do it today.
Absolutely.
Did you get to have some chocolate when you went to Perugia?
Perugia, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, we did. That's a big modern factory, but the old part of Perugia is still the way it was, centuries ago. So that's stayed at a place called Monte Ripido, which was a hermitage for one of the companions of St. Francis, and so got a little bit of both. Yes, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of a pilgrimage for Michael, the Camino. Since he's so athletic, Michael is on the swim team and all that. He's athletic. The Camino is a walking pilgrimage. It's the way the pilgrims followed to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, which was when they couldn't get to the Holy Land. The importance of Santiago became. And I know 206 even runs guided tours. And there's a priest at the diocese. I'll mention his name if it's important to you later. But who's done the Caminos, I think, 6 or 7 times.
Oh, beautiful.
It's his thing. He does it a different route and so forth, but always ends up at Santiago.
What's his name?
Oh, Bob Scheckenbach is his name. So you can get him involved with 206.
That Francis and Dominic and Claire did to get everywhere.
Oh, it was walking, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, where he got the stigmata was an hour and a half to 2 hour bus ride. So if it's that long, imagine how long it must have taken for him to get there.
A whole week.
Back in the 1200s.
Gosh.
A whole week for sure.
Yeah, and it's not all flat terrain like we were saying, and in Spain too, it's hills, and you have to prepare, and we got to get the right shoes. But back then, Francis probably walked barefoot, or very plain sandals. So, yeah, reminds us of the,
You
devotion.
can find his sandals. A pair of his sandals is in the lower basilica of St. Francis in Assisi. So he did wear some sandals, at least some of the time.
So sometimes, yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, great. Well, I know. So what is the name of the priest, Father, that always goes?
Right, I'm sure he doesn't mind my divulging his name, but Bob Scheckenbach, Father Bob Scheckenbach, I think he's in Kings Park.
Okay.
And he's something of an expert, really, about the Camino. And it's the great pilgrimage way, and a way to get introduced to that one is to see the film with Martin Sheen called The Way.
The Way.
The Way. That's a little bit of it's a minor classic, well worth seeing. And it's about the Camino.
Beautiful. So would you be interested in that, Michael, one day?
Yeah, I think absolutely. And I'd love to take like my brothers with me as well, like to do something like that, because we're all.
How many brothers do you have? Brothers and sisters do you have?
I have 2 younger brothers and the youngest sister. So it's me, my brother Nick, my littlest brother Christopher, and then it's my little sister Sarah. So
Oh,
You
okay.
If they're
usually take
listening,
about a
I
week
guess.
the way the 206 sets it up. You usually take about a week to get to the shrine. Walking every day. But you can do it in a lot of different ways. He did it.
Yeah.
Sheehan has shown us doing it on his own and staying in the youth hostels where you're all together in one room, and it's not fancy digs at night, and they carry your own
Fancy
pack
digs.
and all of that sort of stuff. So he did it that way. But however you figure it out, it's everybo's a little